Imagine winning the position of God and having to grant wishes by beating up enemies in various locations. This pretty much sums up the absolute basics of the Guided Fate Paradox, a roguelike RPG for the PlayStation 3 by Nippon Ichi Software, the folks that brought you the likes of the Disgaea series and ZHP Unlosing Ranger vs Dark Death Evilman, with the Guided Fate Paradox being a spiritual successor in terms of gameplay to ZHP, while also being part of Nippon Ichi Software's multiverse, which I guess kind of explains the existence of characters from other Nippon Ichi games appearing in multiple games. The Guided Fate Paradox is also known for having all 9 members from the idol group Muse from Love Live voiced characters in the game, with the game, interestingly enough, crediting them under their idol name before the voice actress's name. In this game you play the role of Runya Kagurazaka, a high school student who has never really been lucky or has ever won things. On his way through a shopping centre, he's stopped by a girl wearing a maid outfit running a lottery. Noting that he got a lottery ticket from buying groceries to take home for dinner, he's encouraged by the girl to try his luck, and to his surprise, he wins the grand prize. When he asks the girl what the prize is, she whispers to him that he's going to be God before being knocked out. After a while, Runya wakes up in a strange place where the girl identifies herself as Liliu Saotame, an angel whose mission is to serve God. Putting the fact that the angel has a surname and a Japanese one aside, Runya learns that he's in a place called Celestia and that Liliel is his personal angel. Runya is then introduced to the other angels in Celestia, and he learns that his job as God is to answer the wishes of his followers. Runya is then introduced to the machine known as the Fate Revolution Circuit, which creates a dungeon in the form of a copy world that mirrors the world of his followers. He then enters these dungeons to fight monsters known as aberrations. As Runya defeats these aberrations and moves further into the dungeons, his actions will shape the fates of his followers in order to grant their wishes. Will Runya spend his day simply granting wishes? Is there more to it than that? More importantly, is the game any good? Find out in The Good. I did enjoy the gameplay for the most part. Each dungeon Runya and his angel companion goes into is randomly generated and will have them both start at level 1, and they'll get stronger the more enemies they beat. As you progress through the game, the dungeon for each follower introduces a new mechanic to keep things fresh and interesting. If Runya was to complete, leave or fall in a dungeon, depending on your performance, his base stats will increase so he can return to the dungeon stronger. There are several things to take note while going through a dungeon. Of course your health is one, SP is another and equipment skills use those, and EN is the third. While health and SP go up as you wander around out of battle, EN acts like a hunger bar, which goes down over time. If it gets low, you need to feed Runya something unless you want to lose health because you've run out of EN, so preparation is key to surviving through the game. Items that Runya can pick up in the dungeon can be equipped to him or his companion, and I really like how they actually appear on the characters. Weapons have unique moves which can deal damage or provide support as well as boost Runya's stats. As you fight, your equipment's burst meter rises, and once it's full, the item bursts, which results in a decrease to your stats, but with some other benefits. Burst equipment can be sold at a higher price, or if you have the money, you can upgrade the equipment at the blacksmith in the hub area, which will increase its power, as well as the burst meter. The other thing you get is a holy icon, which is used for the Divinagram feature. The Divinagram is a grid where you place tiles to not just increase Runya or any of the angels' base stats, but to also make room for divine artifacts which can make Runya or the angels even stronger, at the cost of nullifying the stat boosts from the tiles they're on. If Runya falls in battle, the game will penalise you by having Runya and his companion lose their equipment, all the items they had on them at the time, and half the money that you're carrying, so it does pay to be cautious. When another gauge is filled by dealing and taking damage, Runya can also enter God mode for a few turns, which will restore his HP and SP. God mode also has a skill that heavily damages all enemies in a room at the cost of ending God mode, which has been an absolute godsend in some situations, if you excuse the pun. The game does have a very good job of introducing each of its new mechanics as to not overwhelm players, and I didn't feel like the game was doing too much hand-holding either, so I think it's also quite accessible, if you're new to these sorts of games, which is pretty good. I think for the most part the gameplay was solid, but I do have some grievances which I'll go over later. I also liked the game's story as well. The game is split into 10 chapters, and to begin with, the wishes that Runya fulfills are fairly simple ones, but they're all a little deeper than they appear to be. The first wish that Runya has to fulfill involves the story of Cinderella. and I found how trying to question the story and potentially change some of the events of the tale quite interesting. The game does take a significantly darker and more serious approach during the second half, and without spoiling anything, I think the pacing of it works pretty well. The story dungeons are all the same length at 10 floors, however the first few are split into 2 sections of 5 floors each to ease you into the game. As you go through the story dungeons, a part of the story gets unlocked each time Renya goes down a floor. These story segments provide some more context around the follower you're helping, or events that's happening behind the scenes in Celestia. At the end of each chapter you're introduced to the main antagonists, and you can see what they're prepared to get up to as well. You can also take on optional dungeons that you can unlock. These dungeons are useful for boosting your stats and getting better gear with higher upgrade limits, which is essential for late game. After completing the story you do unlock New Game Plus, and thankfully the stats, items and money that you and your angels had when you beat the game carry over. As you progress through the story, or after returning from dungeons, new services are unlocked such as recolouring certain pieces of equipment, storing money in a bank to keep it protected, or even to power up all weakened monsters will be available, so there's a little bit of customization for your runs as well. Despite how serious the game is, Nippon Ichi Software still throws some of their trademark humour, which I still appreciate. The game's music was something I found that really stood out. The music was composed by Yosei Teikoku, a Japanese rock band known for their blend of metal, electronic and classical music. You may also know them as the group behind the opening for the anime Mirai Nikki, or The Future Diary. The game's opening, God in the Illusory Garden, really hit hard when I first heard it, and the tune does play at other points of the game. The background music of the cutscenes and fights complements it very well, and I thoroughly enjoyed listening to it all. The game can be played with Japanese or English voices, and by default I usually play most of my games with Japanese voices, which to me sounds better than the English dub in this case, and the members of Muse have done an excellent job with the roles that they've been given. While there are things I do like about the game, there are also things I didn't like, so let's explore those in the bad. The game's traps have been an absolute nuisance. I know it's a game mechanic and I've come across many of these in similar games, but I think the placement of traps in this game are far too convenient. It's not unusual for them to end my run if I happen to get a bad floor in a dungeon, or in one case, I've activated a trap that's booted me from a shop area before I could pay for something, which labelled me as a thief, and then I got boxed in and killed by stupidly high level enemies. Most of the time the traps don't even hurt me or inflict a status ailment, so they're more inconveniences that happen a little too much more than anything. The game will also punish you for being ill prepared, as the only way to escape most dungeons once you enter them is either by being defeated in it, beating the dungeon, or using an exit item. The exit item can only be purchased in the main hub area of Celestia, and if you've forgotten to buy one and you're having a bad time, I guess it's time to say goodbye to everything you've picked up and the gear you've spent far too much money on upgrading. Oh, and your money too. On that note, as you progress through the game, you can unlock the other angels at Celestia to help, and each angel has their own special skills. These skills can be activated by talking to the companion in order to use in a dungeon, but I've never bothered to use them at all throughout my entire playthrough. While parts of the game did get frustrating, it wasn't to the point where I would need to use my companion's skills, and most of the time the skills didn't suit the dire situation I was in. The angel's AI can also be adjusted to affect their behaviour in a dungeon, whether it be to follow you, act independently, or avoid combat, and it was something I never really bothered with either, as keeping your companion close has saved me countless times, so the default setting was adequate. Your companions don't help in boss fights though, which is explained away as Renya having to prove himself, and this can get frustrating in later boss fights, such as ones where you have to protect an NPC from being defeated. While the mechanics are mostly good, it's a double-edged sword, and the random nature of the dungeons can make a really good run end in a lot of miserable ways. There isn't much else I can really complain about with the game, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. I had fun with the Guided Fate Paradox. It's a solid dungeon crawler with roguelike features. The gameplay I found enjoyable and easy to get into, and the story was reasonably serious with a touch of humour made even more enjoyable by the voice talents of Muse. The game's music is also really good and I thoroughly enjoyed it. However, the gameplay can also be a double-edged sword, with the dungeon traps being annoying and how punishing the game can be over a simple mistake, as well as how you can make do without your angel companion's skills being used or AI adjusted, but that is the nature of the beast. If you prefer a more lighthearted approach with similar mechanics, I would definitely recommend you check out ZHP Unlosing Ranger vs Dark Death Evilman, even more so if you prefer to play the games with English voice acting, as I felt the voice acting in that game was top notch. There is a lot of commitment if you intend to fully complete everything the game has to offer, and knowing how it works and how you can make it work to your advantage is the key. But definitely worth a try if you enjoy games such as the Mystery Dungeon games, or if you've checked out the review of Omega Labyrinth Life. With that though, it's time for my rating. I would give The Guided Fate Paradox a biblically accurate celestial being out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.